Well, hello, Miss Christie Mann.
Well, hello, Miss Rachel Baldi.
The tables have turned and the interviewer becomes the interviewee.
Oh, I just got shivers everywhere. Oh my gosh, I'm nervous. Now I know what it feels like.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. It's coming up for you.
It is really vulnerable to be in the other seat. It is to be the one being interviewed. And so I have tremendous appreciation and respect for our guests who come and share their perspectives, their work, their art, their medicine, their techniques, their tools with us and our audience.
Yeah.
Because it's a vulnerable act.
Yeah, for saying yes and coming and sharing it with us and our listeners in the world. Yeah. Well, I want to get your take on all of these questions and juicy bits. So I'm going to dive right in. And I would love for you to tell us what your definition of right relationship is.
It's definitely evolving, right? As the season goes on and I meet new folks or talk to colleagues, our community about this. So, and I wrote something on it, and here's what I have. So I'm going to read that. Right relationship is not a destination. In fact, it isn't static at all, as we would like to think. For me, it's a practice. It is a dynamic dance of falling out of pono. Pono is alignment with mind, body, spirit, one of the Hawaiian teachings that have come forward in this season. With falling out of alignment with oneself, with others, with projects, with purpose, with land, with animals, with the world around us, with our spiritual beliefs and practices. So it's falling out of alignment and noticing that, acknowledging this, and recovering to a place of responsibility, reciprocity, and integrity. This process restores right relationship. It is this process of awareness, taking right action, accepting responsibility, and being in relationship. It's a relay that creates the reciprocity, the generosity, and the integrity for the next person or persons to live in this way. So that's my working definition, sister.
Wow. Well, there's a lot in that. You spoke about the falling out, which I make up is when you're not in right relationship, where you fall into being in a dysfunctional relationship or a different type of relationship. And then it's the bringing it back in the ways that you said. What helps you to be able to do that every day?
Oh my goodness. Well, because we get to spend so much of our time together. It's not, again, it's a practice because there's nothing perfect about it. And it's a process, right? Like, I think I'm far better at this now than I was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, definitely a decade ago. And my hope is that I continue to grow in this way. But I think it's the taking responsibility. Like, I was reactive. I said something from a place of reactivity and going to clean it up with the person or even with myself, I was speaking with a colleague last week who has a tendency to just cut people off when there's conflict or not alignment.
Yeah.
And I had a real big reaction to that, given this inquiry of right relationship that we're in. I just said, I think we have to give people an opportunity. Like, even if in some contexts, no, if there's harm being done, then that's a different context. I'm talking about like people we work with, we live with in our communities, and maybe we have different beliefs. Okay. And that's going on all across the world right now.
Yeah.
So I believe that we need to give folks an opportunity to have a conscious conversation about what unfolded from your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something, Rach, you and I do often. Like, let's hear the other person's perspective and what it was like for them. And then let's have empathy of what it might have been like for the other person, And that process, to me, that's the restoration of right relationship. And it takes courage.
Yeah. And a lot of hard work and a lot of self-awareness when you speak about having the awareness to know when you're reactive, having the awareness to be able to listen even when you disagree.
Yeah. Yeah. And to just not give up and say, you know what, I'm just not aligned with this person, or I don't like what they did. I'm going to end it.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, some contexts, maybe that's the right solution, but I think people are doing that too quickly. And that's part of what's been lost when I think about some of the conversations I've been in this season, specifically with folks from who are Indigenous and are still very much involved in their communities. The ways of the Indigenous, where you work through it, you work through it with your community because you have to. You're dependent on each other for survival. But now we can just say, oh, well, I never have to talk to you again because you live in that part of the world. I live in this part of the world. And we just talk via technology. And it's almost become too easy not to restore to a place of right relationship. We've become lazy.
Yeah. And what do you think's available if we restored more, if we didn't do that so much? What's available for us, even in our individual relationships, our closer relationships, and then also in the bigger, wider world?
So much. Like my whole body is shivering. Thank you for asking that question, Rach. I mean, I just know how much you and I want to hear your take on this, we've benefited from staying and doing the work with each other and working through the sticky bits and the moments where we maybe wanted to walk away, because every time the relationship deepens and then we are able to, it's not so much create more, but be more in alignment with what we're co-creating and and the work we're doing in the world. And I think everybody benefits because we're doing that. So if I just take that micro example and replicated that, if more people were doing that with their teams, in their businesses, in their homes, whether it's with children, spouses, partners, roommates, parents, in the community circles, just imagine. And I don't think this is like kumbaya, it's just like, it's going back to the way our ancestors actually interacted. Of course, there's been violence, there's been war, but if you go back far enough in time, in most people's lineages, there's a set of elders who work in right relationship with all the things, the land, the community, the animals, each other, themselves, because that was, I believe, the way we were intended to operate.
And it got lost along the way.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I know for you, me and you were talking about this a little bit last week, but you went on a retreat not so long ago. And I know that you got in touch with some of your lineage. And so tell us a little bit about what really got you excited or connected you to right relationship and your lineage in that retreat.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And actually the episode after this will be with one of the elders, one of the teachers from that retreat. Yeah. So if folks, tune into, his name's Kumo Ramsey from Hawaii, and very, very interesting teachings around all of this. What I really connected to was I've been very drawn to Native American Indigenous practices. And so I've been very curious about that, given that I'm a white woman of a vantage, and really wanting to be mindful of like appropriating and being mindful of just the way I'm going to say like digest the information and then maybe reshare it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm bringing Indigenous people on.
They share it.
Right. So that they're sharing it directly. Mm-hmm. So I was like, why am I so curious about this? And so one of the things I learned is that there's been a prophecy that in these times of humanity that we're struggling as humans, that the Indigenous practices would come very accessible to people. More and more people would be gravitating towards reconnecting with nature, being in right relationship with the land, going back to more living off of the land, as well as some of these practices of working with the elements. And so that's part of it. That's one of the things I learned that really stuck with me. But then I really tuned into the fact that my lineage probably there's like druids and so this would be going way, way back, who are indigenous to the lands of like the British Isles. And they too would have had what I understand as native practices. They would have been honoring the land, working with the elements, being in ceremony, being in ritual, sitting in circle. So I am now on a quest. This is what I'll be doing the rest of the year, Rachie, is really exploring my own lineage so that I can find the characters who I'm clearly like I'm born from. Like,
yeah, related to. Yeah.
I'm, and the ones that were holding this consciousness, because it's that's how I look at it. It's a consciousness. So the ones that are holding this consciousness so that I can honor my lineage. And of course, I want to still honor these incredible humans that I'm coming into contact with. But I think for me to be in right relationship around all of what we're talking about, I need to better understand where I came from and who were the characters in my lineage who had these types of practices. And can I create from that place?
Before you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I know that I'll witness that journey as you go down that journey.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And no, I'm hearing definitely that as I know, you love to highlight and bring all voices to the table. And there's something in you that wants to find your own connection to your ancestors as well along the way, and to find ones that you connect to the same passions and purpose and way of living that you live daily.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. I want to go back to a little bit because we did touch on our relationship and just around, you kind of spoke around, and I definitely agree with it, is that we don't allow ourselves to be in that kind of uncomfortable place around relationship long enough to get through to the deeper, more loving, more connected or understanding. Doesn't even always have to be loving. And I know through our relationship, there's been some very difficult times where, like you said, the easy thing would have been to just be like, yeah, I'm done. I'm out. See ya. Love you, but I'm out. And not go to that uncomfortable place. But we didn't, because we both believe in many things. One, we have a love and connection for each other, and we want to do the hard work. And we know that if we break through the hard work, there's something on the other side. And we've had glimpses of that, and we continue to have that. But yeah, like that society doesn't, like, we don't want to be in the uncomfortable for long enough to get through.
No.
What are the practices and habits that help you to be able to stay? So for anyone who's listening who says, yeah, you know what, I want to be able to do that. I want to stay in the uncomfortable a little bit longer. How do I do that? What helps you? What are the practices or ways of being to allow you to be able to be in that place long enough?
Can I ask you what you see in me that allows me to to do that, that might help me pull something out that's really tangible.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if there isn't a human being that lives to be in right relationship out there, it's you. Like if there was a dictionary and it had a definition of someone who wants to live in right relationship, I think that this has been your lifelong quest and will continue to be your quest. And what I see the qualities in you around that is deep thoughtfulness, deep self-awareness, and deep self-care.
Mm.
And I know that the self-care can have ebbs and flows, but when you care for yourself deeply and you do that in a structured and a routine way, I see that you have the ability to hold space for others, to be more understanding, to be more open, to be more of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
more
so
capacity.
Now, yeah, I've witnessed you in that, and I admire you in that, because I'm like, wow, she's so dedicated to some of these practices and these things, and I see why. Because if you focus on that, then you are able to do this.
Thank you, love. Thank you for that reflection. Remember the work we did with Marcus Buckingham around standout? It was like these qualities that you have as a leader that you don't know you have because it's just innate.
Yep.
And what I'm learning through one, exploring this, what you just shared in our relationship in general, and then my human design, listeners know that I love the human design work. I was put here to practice being in right relationship. Like there's different language that's used, right, in different contexts, but I'm very dedicated to the relationships around me and sharing technologies, information, and tools with other folks to practice being in right relationship. I think everything is about relationship. Absolutely everything, right down to like this laptop sitting on my friggin' desk on its little like stand and all the cords that are stuck in it. Like this is a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there's electricity coming in through these cords, in this house that was built in the jungle, like what kind of relationship had to be fostered to make that? Like, I get so excited when I think about that. And then, as you know, the monkeys live right behind me in my office. And just watching them interact with the toucans and the other animals, it's like everything is in this constant cycle of relay.
Mm-hmm.
The monkey is eating they eat the Indian pines, the dead leaves on the Indian pines. They drop the seed. The toucan comes in and grabs it and goes off. And then, it poops. And then another animal, like it just the ecosystems around us. And when I look at humanity in this moment, it's why we created this podcast. It's why we're having these conversations, is because, I know I really felt like we needed to be having conversations to support people to get through these times, because our nervous systems have been like under attack. So now I'm going off on a tangent, but when I go to like nervous system, like I talk a lot about the nervous system, and I do have a lot of practices to fortify my nervous system. And a lot of it is breath work, and I lift weights, because weights are a great way to like really fortify.
Mm-hmm.
And being in nature and praying, again, to whatever source this is why I chose to move into nature. I wanted to live in a garden because I wanted to serve in a way that I wasn't able to when I was in the cities that I was living in North America, because I was, like many of us, experiencing what we were going through and had an intuition that it was going to continue. So if I'm boiling it down, Rach, it's like fortifying the nervous system, getting in nature. And like, this is my purpose. So I am very motivated.
Yeah.
And you know what? Some days I'm like, fuck it. I don't want to have the tough conversation. I'm exhausted.
Yeah. So what do you
know?
do on those days?
I don't have the conversation.
Don't have them.
Like I think a younger version of me would try to power through and do it. Now I'll go rest. I'll go rest. And I know that's something you and I are both working on, is like rest as a KPI. Like how much rest can we actually get? And I have a long way to go with that. As you know, I feel like I'm starting a new arc of my life because I've created a habitat that creates, it's a sanctuary for rest.
That allows you to rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've never had that. So that's like so it's now like the nest has been built. So will I rest in service of this mission?
Yeah. Will you make that choice? Well, it sounds again a lot of self-awareness of knowing when you're in the right place, physically, mentally, spiritually, to have those conversations, and when you're not, or to be in right relationship, and maybe when your capacity for them is not at what's needed, and then you choose to go and rest to recover.
Yeah. And there are some situations, Rach, where I'm like, it's actually not worth my time and energy. So I do want to say, because I know I was saying, I feel like people give up too easily. I think both are true. And there are some contexts where I look at the scenario and the situation and I say, there's that, that saying, it's not my monkeys, not my circus.
Yeah.
And like, this is also a practice, because knowing where to channel the energy, like who are my people? You're my people, Mike's my people. My best friends are my people. My family are my people. My community are my people. It's like invest. And, so that the energy can be managed, that energy flow that I talk about, the infinity loop of reciprocity.
Yeah. I want to ask around if there's I feel like there's probably a long list of pivotal moments or experiences, but is there one that comes to mind in this moment where being in relationship, or maybe going from not being in right relationship to being in right relationship, transformed your life or your work?
Well, I really do. I think our relationship is a beautiful example of like this process. I'm really proud of our relationship and the work we continue to do with each other. I feel like we're in integrity. We're walking our talk, like what we're bringing to others in organizations. We are doing it. I've had challenging relationships with my parents, and one of my parents this weekend was like, how can you be so forgiving to the other parent? Because the other parent continues to do certain things that many people would be like, this is ridiculous if this person is doing these things. And you know what I said to her is, if I remain in a place of anger, in a place of frustration, in a place of judgment, like they did wrong, I'm really only hurting myself. And so one of the things I've learned in those really important relationships is that I actually want to be in relationship. And so I had to do the inner work on myself to heal and find forgiveness, and to focus on like the stuff that does work, the stuff that is incredible, or that I feel alignment with. And I did it for me, because feeling exhausted from frustration and anger and resentment is a horrible way to live.
Yeah. Well, you said something, which is you want to be in relationship. You want to be in relationship with your parents, this specifically. And so rather than be in relationship and frustrated and angry, you're saying, no, I want to have a different type of relationship. And so it goes back to all the things that you said. This is a relay. This is a practice. And very much, I think you said it before, but you taking responsibility for it, regardless of if the other person does or not. Because there might be people listening who say, you know, I want to take responsibility. I want to be in the right relationship, but the people around me don't, or I don't know if they do. But what you're talking about in many of the relationships is that you can still do that on your own.
It only takes one person to do the work in a relationship, and it will raise the frequency of the container. Again, these contexts are not perfect for me at all. Are there moments where a part of myself feels resentful because I carry maybe more than what one's been conditioned to carry? Of course.
Yeah.
That happens when I'm tired. It happens when I'm not in my practices of self-care.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it comes back down to, it's like, yeah, I want to be in these relationships. So I have to really care for myself so that I can show up with an open heart, you know, and have boundaries. Like, I don't want people to hear this and have it collapse with there's no boundaries, because that's been one of the best things about these most challenging relationships is I've learned how to put in boundaries with an open heart. And I didn't always know how to do that before. I would have to push away and be reactive and confrontational because I didn't know how to say no with my heart open.
Okay.
And that's been one of the gifts of these particular relationships that I'm referring to.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna, for our listeners, you said boundaried with an open heart. So tell us more, or what would you advise others who want to be boundaried with an open heart?
And I'm not going into specifics out of respect for some of the people, and I know you know that. I just wanted to name that. And I think it's learning how to say no. Because in the past, if I had to say no, I thought I had to kind of almost be mean because I didn't know, you know, or my energy had to be really forceful, or reactive. Like, well, how dare you ask for that? Like, can't you see how much is already happening or being given? You know, and I think it was like, I didn't understand. And again, I have to be rested and grounded. So that means the practices of fortifying the nervous system and taking care of myself have to be in place. So then I can say, I would love to support you and give you the world. But in this moment, I can't, because if I do, then that means I can't be at a baseline. And I have to be at the baseline or above in order to really give. I think we all do. And I think that's a place where maybe folks who are overgivers or take over responsibility, which I feel like a lot of our community, a lot of our listeners will really relate to that.
Absolutely.
They're people who are in service, or they're leaders inside organizations who are serving their teams. So it's about learning how to say no with that open heart. But here's what I can do. You know, here's what I can do. Maybe 6 months from now, I can give you that. Or one of the things that's been new for me, Rach, is I'm like, I can give you my time.
What kind of, what? Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't before quite see the value of my time. And now I see that, again, if I can be present and open-hearted, my time is really valuable because I have a gift, again, which many of our listeners do, as do you, to see people and to and to be in an energy of like celebration, having conversations that propel and move things forward rather than keep us in like a victim consciousness. So like, you know, that's another way to look at it. Maybe I can't give you money, but I can give you time.
Yeah, different type of exchange or commodity that you have. And
that's right.
That what you, like you said, your gift. And I know that because I'm a recipient of that gift a lot because I get to work with you of seeing people and really seeing people. And that is, you know, I don't think money can be, there's no amount of money that can make people feel seen and loved and noticed and so forth. So I love that you're noticing the difference in exchange that you can offer people. And when you speak about fortifying your heart in order to have those boundaries coming from love.
Yeah.
I'm so curious about some of the people that you interviewed, especially around, while we're talking about parents, you interviewed Em and Sam House, parent-child relationship, Abigail and Clive Prout, husband and wife relationship. What did you take away from those conversations regarding those very connected, family-orientated relationships and how right relationship comes to play?
So much. Oh my goodness. Every conversation we've had, for the whole podcast, 100 episodes, like super grateful. Thank you, listeners. Thank you. This was an accidental podcast. I know Rachel spoke about it before we started talking, but I'm so grateful people say yes to come and talk to us, and that folks are listening. And those particular conversations were really sweet, really rich, because we took the context of right relationship and applied it to their relationship dynamic. So in the context of Em and Sam, we were exploring parent and child and how a family system navigated Em coming out as non-binary, as gay, and it was really inspiring to hear both parties speak about the difficulties and how they worked towards rebalancing, restoring right relationship. Each of them were so honest and vulnerable. And so I feel very honored that they went there with us. And I know I learned, so I healed so much in that conversation, like conversations that maybe I've attempted to have with a parent, but my parents aren't therapists or trained coaches, so they don't have the same tools in the toolkits. And so there was something really, really healing about that one.
Witnessing that.
And then, of course, everything that's happening, in the world, it felt really liberating to hear a family unit talk about how they've navigated social identity and a queer community. I think that's important, that we continue to hold a torch for marginalized communities. And then with Abigail and Clive, they're two people that I've always admired as a couple. Like when I had an altar for calling in my partner, their relationship was like on the altar. Because part of it, and if people have listened to that episode or if you go back and listen to it, like I've always put them on a bit of a pedestal, their relationship, making up because they're both coaches and Clive was a therapist, that they not that it was perfect, but that it was far easier than the relationships I've been in and that I'm in.
Yeah.
The romantic ones, right? Because they're husband and wife. And of course, we found out that's not the case.
I was about to say, what did you discover? Yeah.
Discovered that wasn't the case. And Clive kind of called me out on the projection, which was really cool and refreshing. And we talked about, as coaches or healers or any type of practitioners, the trap we can fall in with our intimate partners to always be in a friggin' workshop, right?
Yeah.
And I know, bless my partner, because that's what happens over here a lot. And it's exhausting. And so I learned from listening to Abigail and Clive, they've been together for 2 decades. So it's been a process for them to stop trying to coach each other, grow each other, let each other be in their unfolding, in their journey.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to boundaries, having boundaries.
Yeah. And having the self-awareness, like, oh shit, like this person is not paying me now.
This person is not asking for me to teach them or grow them or anything.
No.
Yeah.
They're like asking, they're just, we are, exactly.
Well, some of the other guests, is there one that jumps out to you or a moment in one of the interviews that jumps out to you in this moment that we're talking that you want to highlight?
Well, I want to highlight Jessa Calderon and Kale Kalija. So both from different indigenous tribes. But what I really, really found priceless about those conversations, again, is hearing their original teachings that have been passed on from their elders. And in speaking with both of those humans, I felt like I was in a trance, in a prayer, because I can really feel how they embody their lineage and the teachings in how they were exploring this concept with me. And Jessa, it was like right after the LA fires, and she's in the LA area and of the tribes from that area. And so it was a really precious moment in time, because that was a community and continues to be. I mean, it's still in shambles from those fires. So just to hear about the indigenous practices that we've gotten so far away from that allow land management and the land not to burn down. But even just learning about that, just something felt healed in me to be like, okay, we're so out of right relationship, how we continue to colonize and, cut down Mother Nature to build apartment buildings and houses. And I take full responsibility for that in my world too.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good segue into the kind of question around how does right relationship and the bigger world, whether it be communities and societies, what do you see right relationship being, the connection or the healing the healing that I was going to say the healing method, but I don't, it's more than that. How do you see them connected, or what do you think the opportunity is for our societies, for our environment from that place?
Well, I'll tell you, a dream, a hope is that this notion of right relationship, and again, we can replace the word right with responsible, aligned, balanced, reciprocal. We're just using that word. I think if more of us were having conversations about what does this mean to me, to us, in any context, that would be a way to, it could be a groundswell of fortifying humanity. Because I think when we explore this, it reconnects us to our lineage and to the ancestors in our lineage who knew how to do right relationship. Because somewhere along the way, we have to go back maybe thousands and thousands of years, but somewhere along the way, there is one in your circle who knew this, who knew it was embodied, it was innate. So if more of us could be exploring what does it mean? And I do believe there's, when we had the elders with us, Rach, and so for those of us listening, every year we interview a panel of our elders in celebration of our profession. And we both noted that this year felt like something was extra sweet. And I think part of it was we were exploring right relationship, and that they all have so much to contribute to it. But they flipped the table and they started asking us, what do we think? Remember?
Yeah.
Sweethearts. Sitting in circles.
Yeah.
Sitting in circles. And we've gotten so far away from that. We have fences up. We don't talk to our neighbors. We live in these buildings stacked on top of each other. No.
Yeah. And yet we have the largest population of the elder generation at this current point. So it seems like an opportunity, there's a massive numbers.
Yes. Right. And that's what we forget that. And so what I was saying to them is I believe we need to get back to sitting in the circles and being around the fire, whether it's a literal fire or metaphoric fire, because we can sit in circle via virtual. That's the work we bring into organizations, creates an atmosphere of that divinity, if you will, an atmosphere of that reciprocity, of that presence. We're sitting in communion together in service of us reconnecting to the parts of ourselves that we've been told to keep away, but those are the very best parts of ourselves that need to be unleashed, liberated right now so that we can move forward as an individual and as a collective.
Yeah, I mean, I just got goosebumps there because you were speaking about it. I think, well, you said a groundswell, but I'm hearing from you like a movement of people, a mass movement of people who are, I don't know, right relationship activists. I don't know, what are they? Like, if you were to call these people in, what is the movement that you're calling? Like,
it's the RR Club. RR. Here we go, RRs.
the right relationshipers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Activism from the place of right relationship.
Yes. Yes. Rach, you and I and our UpLevel and like our colleagues, we're about to embark on this journey of training 500 sales leaders from one of the most influential, largest organizations right now.
Yeah.
And we are customizing an offering for these participants, these leaders. And I keep envisioning being in front of that room, sitting in circle with these leaders, starting it with sales is relationship, relationship, sales. Life is relationship is life.
Yeah.
And so I think where I'm getting on my soapbox about is that like absolutely everything comes down to our ability to be in relationship with ourselves. So what are the practices I have in place that help me fortify my center, keep my heart open with others? So it's not about being perfect. It's about actually when there is conflict, what is my capacity to stay in the conversation, to take responsibility for my part or my reactivity, to listen, like truly listen to the other person and repair. This is an act of reciprocity or generosity. And then the bigger thing. So I believe we can't just have a relationship with ourselves and with our colleagues and with the folks that we live with and our best friends. We have to have a relationship with something outside of ourselves, whether it be a spiritual practice, a source, whether it be Mother Nature. But that's been part of what's been lost, is people have lost that connection. So we become too selfish.
Yeah. And insular.
And insular.
Yeah.
So it's like those three lenses, I believe, will help the movement, will help our right relationship activists restore. We'll UpLevel the friggin' production, sister.
UpLevel. And yeah, I mean, and we do it in everything we do. UpLevel is an example of that, in even down to anyone that works for us, anyone that hopefully comes into our interaction with us, whether it be in a classroom, whether it be in a coaching, whether it be with the business. We try and strive for those three things, those, to be in right relationship with ourselves, with the others, and the world. And I think strive is a very important word to say. And like you said, it's a practice. It's not a destination. It's continual.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And some days easier than others. But as you said, we're walking our talk in the sense that we strive for it always.
And that's all any of us need to do.
Yeah. And that was what.
Because this is not about perfection. It is about presence. It's about presence. How present can you be to yourself, to others, and to whatever the bigger thing is for you? How present can you be? And when you notice you're not present, how do you recover back to presence?
I'm just thinking about that just as a parent. There's so many times that I fail as a parent. But it's about being present to, okay, that didn't go so well. That didn't go the way I'd hoped it to go. What do I need to do to recover? Come back to my resourced, as you said, fortified self.
Yeah.
Try again.
Yeah. Exactly. Try again. I'm sorry. That didn't come out the way I wanted it to. I'm going to try again. I mean, when we're teaching our children that, oh my gosh, Rachel, like when a parent can go back and say, oh, sorry, dude, like that was mom, dad, I messed up there.
Yeah.
So let me try again. When we're modeling that for them, oh my goodness, that's what changes the world.
Yeah.
That's right relationship.
Well, that will create, young people who join the movement, people who lead the movement later on.
Yes, please.
Yeah, they'll already have those resources built in them. Well, Christie Mann, what is you've said a lot of wishes for the world and what you believe is possible when being in right relationship, but what are your final words for the listeners, for the world, for us?
Will you give us your final words first? I'll riff.
I think that, you summarized it. I'm going to kind of repeat it, is the three R's, right relationship with yourself. What do you need in order to be in right relationship with yourself? And knowing that, or going on a journey to discover what resources yourself, allows you to then be in right relationship with others. And if you're in right relationship with others and your world around you, then we can all up level. So for me, what I'm taking away from this is the intention to want to do that, knowing that it's a journey, knowing that it takes a lot of hard work and presence. But if you are able to do this as a practice every day, you can have more fulfilled relationships with other people, yourself, and the world. So it's kind of, I'm taking away like, take the time to do it, Rachel, even on those days, whether it's with me, with someone else, or the world, take the time because there is a benefit. There is an ROI on that one, big ROI.
And ROI, the next episode after this one, Kumar Ramsey says ROI is return on integrity.
I love it. See?
Right?
Integrity is one of my top values. So there you go.
Yeah. And let's flip that, because it's not always about more.
Mm-mm.
It's about depth. So integrity is depth, and presence is depth. And what if we point the conversation for our leaders listening and for our colleagues who are serving leaders inside organizations and teams and organizational systems? What if we point the conversation to KPIs around how many did you feed today? Okay, and again, people will learn more about this in the next episode, but how many did you feed today? Not just literally like we have this many employees and this is how much money went out in order to compensate them for their time. But it's like, did you put a smile on the face of the checkout clerk at the bank? Did that moment with your kid when you did get reactive, did you feed them by restoring right relationship and taking responsibility for the moment? Did you give yourself a moment to pause and breathe and stare at the sky, for a moment? Okay. So like feeding, new KPIs and, can we get away from the constant year over year growth because that is killing us? And can we go for depth? Can we go for depth as a way to create sustainment of businesses? Yeah. And that means feeding our people and feeding our ecosystems spiritually, emotionally, mentally, financially, physically. And so that's the conversation I want to be in with, and I know we're talking about it with our clients. And obviously we are so blessed, Rachel, we get to work with leaders inside organizations who are of these philosophies, are exploring these philosophies, and then they're going into ecosystems that are more traditional. So for our colleagues who are doing the same work, keep going. Yep. And for our clients, and maybe we haven't met you yet, let's be in conversation so that this movement of right relationship can happen because our world needs it.
Amen to that. And just as you're saying that, for those who don't really know how to work with UpLevel, because you're always interviewing, anyone who is interested in knowing more or discovering more or having UpLevel work with them, what would you say about what do we want to tell them in this short moment before we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're if you haven't got it, we're super passionate about being in right relationship, and like absolutely everything that we offer, whether it's coactive coach training or UpLevel off the shelf learning and leadership development moments. We have the School of UpLevel, which is our on-demand, accessible leadership content for anyone. And of course, we have UpLevel Media that produces this podcast and books and guides to really ignite people's consciousness. Like these are all the different ways you can be in relationship with us. And please reach out. Maybe you're the next guest, maybe you want to be in conversation with us. Maybe you want to bring us in to work with your team or your organization. So just reach out to us. We want to hear from you.
Absolutely. And like Christie said, there's an avenue for whoever you are to be able to be in part of our ecosystem and our environment. Yeah.
That was important to us to be in right relationship, that no matter how much money somebody has or which context they're coming from, they can find a way to be in relationship with us.
And be part of, be part of our community. Well, thank you very much, Christie Mann. Our time has come to an end.
Thank you, Rachel Baldi. That was fun to have the tables turned.
Yeah, I like turning tables.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, listeners, for taking time to listen to the 100th episode. Can't believe we made it here. Amazing. The By Accident podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% the By Accident podcast.
Yeah. I remember the day you're like, we did a podcast. Okay.
There she goes, manifestor generator.
Absolutely. And as a projector, I'm like, okay, we'll make it happen.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you, listeners. Be well. Thanks for coming to learn and love and UpLevel with us.